Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. We will start immediately since time is running. I will leave the floor to the High Representative and Vice President Federica Mogherini, who will debrief you about this morning Foreign Affairs Council meeting. High Representative, you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, first of all, as you have noticed, we started our day welcoming, after 22 years, the Prime Minister of Israel in a moment of particular tension in Jerusalem and in the region, very timely, following the recent developments and the US announcement on Jerusalem. Our exchange focused mainly on the situation in Jerusalem and the Middle East peace process, even if we touched upon the other 2 points we decided to discuss with the Prime Minister, being the bilateral relations between the European Union and Israel and regional developments. But obviously the situation in Jerusalem and the perspectives of the Middle East peace process have been the main point of our exchange. After the US announcement, we see the need for an even stronger engagement for peace with the parties and international and regional partners. During the exchange we had with the Prime Minister, almost 2 hours, myself and the 28 foreign ministers, we underlined that a lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians remains a top priority for the European Union, and we have a consolidated and very much united position. I have to say that Prime Minister Netanyahu realized, I think, from the ministers themselves that there is full EU unity on this, that the only realistic solution to the conflict between Israel and Palestine is based on 2 states, with Jerusalem as the capital of both the State of Israel and the State of Palestine. The European Union and its member states will continue to respect the international consensus on Jerusalem until the final status of the Holy City is resolved through direct negotiations between the parties. This was a clear and united message that all the 28 foreign ministers conveyed to the Prime Minister. We also stressed strongly the importance of the holy sites of Jerusalem for the 3 monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity and Islam, and our strong support by all the 28 member states and the European Union institutions to Jordan and the key role that His Majesty the King of Jordan is playing as a custodian of the holy places, as I could reiterate also to the Jordanian Foreign Minister last Friday. The message was clear, but also a clear message of willingness from the European Union side to help in all possible manners to find or refine the key to start the engine of the peace process. This is, first of all, in the security interest of Israel. And this is why we will continue to work with both sides, Israelis and Palestinians. We will receive President Abbas at the next Foreign Affairs Council in January for similar talks. But also we will continue our work together with our international partners, starting from the United States within the Quartet, with Russia and the United Nations, and with important partners we have in the region, starting from Jordan and Egypt. We have seen an important meeting of the ministers of the League of Arab States on Saturday that reiterated the Arab Peace Initiative as the basis for their engagement. We very much share that view, and we will work together with the group they have established to explore all possible ways to restart the process and accompany it. We then moved, so maybe to sum up, because I've heard that some are talking about a European Union initiative or proposals. We're not looking at multiplying initiatives. We're looking at playing at full our role, as usual, as a determined, quiet, rational, cooperative, convening power, as always, reliable, predictable. We will try to help finding solutions, avoiding any dangerous vacuum that could only strengthen radical positions or extremist positions, which is something we do not want to see, neither in the region nor elsewhere. We then met the ministers only for our Foreign Affairs Council proper. It was quite a natural continuation of the conversation because the main point on our agenda was the wider Middle East. We recognize the connections that are there in the many different crisis areas in the region, and we had a sort of tour d'horizon with the ministers of all the different hotspots of the region, checking where we are as the European Union and what we can do further. I have to say also in these other files we have registered a remarkable level of unity and determination by the member states. First of all, I will mention Yemen, where we have played so far a major humanitarian role, and we have worked on some track 2 initiatives on the political and diplomatic side. We have expressed the willingness together, EU member states, to play more of a political role to try and facilitate a political solution of a crisis that we see is spiraling into something awful, and we need to avoid that this becomes the spark of a broader confrontation in the region. On Lebanon, our objective is to ensure that the country keeps focusing on its internal priorities. After the return of Prime Minister Hariri to Beirut, that we welcome very much, we see a renewed willingness to the full respect of the dissociation policy of the country that we support very much. I will visit myself Beirut next week on the 19th to show the European Union support to the Prime Minister, the government, the institutions of a country that needs to be accompanied and supported, and the European Union is there for that, together with all our international partners. On Syria, we are preparing, as you know, the second Brussels conference in spring that will give us the opportunity to put on the table some positive leverages that the UN Special Envoy, Staffan de Mistura, can use to incentivize a political agreement in Geneva. I have had the opportunity to say several times in the last couple of weeks, we believe that on the Syria crisis, all roads need to lead to Geneva. I'm from Rome. I took the liberty of distorting a bit the usual saying for a good purpose, because we believe that the only credible framework for a political solution and a political negotiation can be guaranteed by the United Nations. And we hope to see steps forward and a solution there. The conflict is still ongoing, even if some wish to pretend it is over. We know very well that on the ground the fighting is still going on, civilians are still attacked, and we see that with our humanitarian support every single day inside Syria. So the assumption that the war is over and things can go back to normal, unfortunately, has no real ground. We wish it could become the reality in the coming months, and we are ready to support any positive development, both on the de-escalation zones implementation and on the political negotiations, with concrete action, with concrete support, including economic support. But what is clear is that the European money will come for reconstruction only once a political agreement is reached in Geneva, under UN auspices and with the right guarantees of credibility. Sorry, I'm going around quite quickly over a region that is a bit crowded. I would say only last word on Iraq, because we are preparing the new European Union strategy to support the country in this critical moment. We're seeing good developments on the defeat of Daesh on the ground. We believe this is not the time to forget about Iraq. On the contrary, this is the time to increase our work with the country. So we will work to preserve Iraq's unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity, help on including minorities and keeping diversity of the society through better inclusiveness and governance. We're working on strengthening institutions, including with our new mission that has started last 22nd of November to help on the security sector reform. And obviously, as always, we're also working to support the role of civil society, women and young people in the difficult phase the country is facing now. So our work to support Iraq will increase in the coming months. In particular, also to make sure that relations between Baghdad and Erbil get on a cooperative tone and the country manages to avoid mistakes that in the past were done, underestimating problems that then developed into something major that we all had to face. I believe I went around the all set of issues we discussed with the ministers, and I presented to you somehow the conclusions that we reached as a common ground for the European Union and its member states' action in the next months on this. Also to mention that we welcome the fact that the GCC meeting took place, even if we would expect more steps in the direction of, let's say, refinding in that format a way for the countries of the Gulf to cooperate among themselves and with others, including the European Union. We've always valued enormously the bilateral relation between the European Union and the GCC as a forum, and we have supported and we continue to support very much the work that in particular the Emir of Kuwait is carrying on to save and relaunch this format that we believe is essential for cooperation around the Gulf. Now the Foreign Affairs Council will continue with other important points. One is the lunch we will have now, a bit of a late lunch, and this is why I will ask you to excuse me if we take this, if we keep this press point quite short. We will have the foreign ministers of the G5 Sahel countries with us to discuss together our common work on security, but also on development, together with the African Union and the United Nations. This is a work that we started several years ago. I started myself the format of ministerial meetings between the 5 foreign ministers of the G5 Sahel countries and myself. Regularly, we meet at least once a year, actually much more often now as our challenges in common increase and our also cooperation increases. So we will have a discussion with them on how to support the joint force they have put in place. The European Union has dedicated already 50 million euros to the implementation of that joint force, and we will have, beginning of next year, a heads of state and government meeting between the European Union and the G5 Sahel and other international players to support that work. I was probably not intended to announce that, but I did it, so it's too late. And then we will continue with another important point with the foreign ministers and the development ministers together. We will have a point on the follow-up of the African Union-European Union summit that we had in Abidjan last month, just a couple of weeks ago. And in particular, I will update the ministers on the common work we are preparing with the established task force between the African Union, the European Union and the United Nations, in particular IOM and UNHCR, to work together to save migrants stranded along the route, in particular inside Libya. We will have a first meeting of the task force, as I said earlier this morning, next Thursday here in Brussels with the African Union, UNHCR and IOM and myself to operationalize this common work. And we will continue afterwards with the development ministers only, with other points, among which trade and development and I think I will stop here because I put already quite a lot of...
Okay, Lawrence, please.